Just over 100 days ago, I went cold turkey off of Instagram, off of all social media. And the result is that I feel like I have my brain back. And in today's episode, I want to share a little bit about what I mean by that. I want to share some of the things that I've learned, what's changed in my life, and my advice to those who are also curious about quitting social media. You are listening to Skin, Earth, Vitality, the podcast where ancient wisdom meets modern vitality. If you are seeking to reconnect with your innate vibrancy, you're in the right place. I'm Emily Davis, a seasoned holistic esthetician and herbalist. Join me as we unlock the secrets of ancient skincare practices, explore the beauty of seasonal and nature-based living, herbalism, and true holistic well-being for you and the broader ecosystem. This podcast is brought to you by Stratum Aesthetics. Head to stratumaesthetics.com to find curated skincare, body care, and other wellness products hand-selected by me. Now enjoy the show. Welcome back in. My name's Emily. I'm an herbalist and an esthetician, and I talk about the intersection between beauty and wellness and vitality, and just how to live your most beautiful life, how to feel amazing in your skin while also cultivating vitality. And today's topic definitely has a lot to do with vitality and cultivating more vitality in your life. So if you like what you hear today, make sure that you like and subscribe, but also subscribe to my weekly newsletter, which is called Moonday Notes. It's basically just a little love letter from me to you in your inbox every single Monday. So I did an episode back in October, which is basically my field notes from the wilderness being my life here outside of social media. And it was like a 3 weeks in update. I quit social media on October 1st of last year, which was 2025. And in that podcast, I just shared a little bit about the experience I was having. I shared about how it felt very reminiscent to when I quit alcohol back in 2018. And the parallels there were just so interesting. And I continue to see that parallel. I had quit alcohol really just because I wanted to explore my relationship with it more. And similarly with social media, I wanted to examine my relationship. So I'll talk today about why I quit, but I do just want to let you know there is that episode. Go check it out. That's one of my favorite episodes I've ever done because there were so many insights. And if this is something that's interesting to you, just examining the relationship between yourself and tech, I think that it will bring you some value. What this episode and that episode are both not trying to do is convince anyone who doesn't want to get off of social media to get off of social media. I'm not about being in convincing energy. And if you don't think that it's a problem in your life, then carry on. That's great. But I was feeling like it was a problem in my life, which is why I made such a drastic change. And what I do want this episode to serve as is inspiration for people who are curious, but also like a time capsule for myself so that I can go back and look at this and see where I was at this point in time. And I just think it's kind of nice. This is why I journal so much, because I'm able to go back and see where I was. And that had a big hand in me leaving Instagram, was me going back through my journals and noticing how many times I had written about how I was concerned that I was spending so much time on Instagram. So like I said, I'll get into that a little bit. But I do just want to talk about what my relationship with Instagram was. And I'm saying Instagram because that was the social media platform that I used the most. But I'm not using TikTok. I'm not using Facebook anymore. I'm not on Twitter. But Instagram was really the one that I was hanging out on the most. So I loved Instagram for a really long time. I joined Instagram right after it launched. I loved the product. I actually built my brick and mortar business truly from Instagram. I am an esthetician, and so I have a brick and mortar business where I see clients for facials, and I built my clientele through word of mouth and through Instagram. And I really loved that. And I would always talk about how amazing that is, that you don't have to go door to door and pass out flyers anymore. You can just post content on Instagram, and it's such a beautiful way to get the word out about your small business or about your message. And I do think that that's one of the most beautiful values that Instagram does provide. However, at this point in time, the the downsides versus the reward that I'm getting from it are not worth it. And, I loved Instagram for like the funny videos, the dog videos, the aesthetic, inspirational content, just looking at beautiful places and travel and architecture and just all of the good stuff that you get out of Instagram. I have always loved that about it. And I'm not going to lie, I do miss these things quite a bit. And in the last episode, I talked about how one morning I was kind of grieving that. I was thinking like, man, it's kind of a bummer that I don't get to look at these beautiful things. And I had this like, whoa, wait a second. Why are you not just focusing on making your life beautiful? It's the same thing with the dog videos. I have a dog right in front of me. Why am I worried about looking in a screen at these videos or at these cute dogs when I can just play with my own dog? And so I've had that realization come back to me time and time again. Every time I grieve the things that I liked about Instagram, I'm like, dude, go travel then. Go see lovely things that you want to see. Make your house feel beautiful. You do not have to look at a screen at other people's lives to get that false sense of whatever it is that you're getting from it. So that's one big realization that's come through that I think is really worth talking about, because that has been some of the grief I've had around it. And I think that maybe that was part of the reason I didn't want to get off of it. And I think that's a little sad. When I'm at the end of my life, I want to look back and know that I lived my life and I wasn't just viewing life through a screen. So aside from that, I have been on Instagram, as I said, sharing my business, sharing my message. And so I was a person who was both a consumer on the personal side and then also a creator. And I think that that matters because it did affect my relationship with the platform, is just like posting all the time, and the pressure to post all the time is a big part of why I left. So let's talk about why I did leave. I, as I said, am a very avid journaler. At the end of every week on Sunday, I will do a review of my week and share what the wins were, what the challenges were, what the highlights were from the week. And I was noticing that I was in the challenges writing quite a bit about how it was a challenge that I wasted too much time on Instagram. And I was writing this like time and time again. And it was a pattern I was noticing and a pattern I was getting a little concerned about. But it wasn't something that I was making change based on. I was just like, well, I need to have more discipline. And those were my takeaways from it. I also was noticing that I was getting pretty stressed out about keeping up with other people in my industry, feeling very competitive and just wanting to keep up with the Joneses all the time. I was always needing to take a new class, to get a new certificate, just so that I was appearing like I was a leader in my industry because I was on the cutting edge. And that was so important to me. And I was just constantly looking outside of myself of what's cool, what's hot, what should I be doing. And then I was also feeling like shit about myself when I felt like other people were doing more than me or doing better than me. And there was just a lot of self-comparison with my work. And I think that there's all of this insidious self-comparison that we don't always notice. I wasn't ever really comparing my physical appearance to other people, and I think that's what gets talked about a lot, and that's obviously super problematic, and I see that in my work quite a bit when I'm talking to my clients, when we're talking about their skin. But I think that there's other forms of self-comparison that we don't always think about. I didn't think I was comparing myself to everybody else, but now with some space, I totally see that I was. Every aspect of your life, you can be comparing yourself to other people who are sharing highlight reels on the platform. So I was noticing that. I also got a little disillusioned with Instagram when I was really into following a lot of pop wellness content. And I felt like it was starting to just get really unsustainable and overwhelming because everybody was just talking about, being obsessed with toxins and living perfectly. And I have lived a holistic life my entire life. And it felt like these people were just taking it to a whole other level, and it was getting exhausting. And then all of a sudden there was this shift in these same people's content to like nervous system support. And these same creators were now talking about like how everyone needs to stop obsessing and holding everyone to this unrealistic standard and needs to loosen their grip. And it felt like there was some gaslighting happening. Like, you just railed on about toxins for the last 3 years, and now you're totally flipping the switch and acting like everyone else is the one doing that. And I feel like that's kind of a thing within the structure, is this fear monger, and then all of a sudden flipping the switch and acting like that never happened. I feel like I've seen it in a lot of different content, like niches, I guess you could call it. And so that I just thought was very interesting. Why is this happening? Is it this need to constantly have like a new thing that you're talking about? And then, of course, the political landscape and polarization on Instagram has gotten pretty out of control. I think we can all agree. I am grateful on one hand for the information that I have gathered from social media. I do think that there's a lot of wonderful content creators, very intelligent content creators out there. And I like that it's kind of a town square where information and ideas can get shared, and in its healthiest form, like there is a lot of nuance that can get shared. And I think this is why I have remained on long form content platforms like Substack and YouTube and listening to podcasts. I'll talk about those in a little bit, the caveat with that. And so I like this sharing of information, and it really opened my eyes to things that I hadn't seen before politically. But it's gotten so polarized that it's become quite toxic. And it's just unfortunate that that's how social media is, how it's built. And it's, built because of human psychology. But in order to get eyes on content, it does have to be scroll stopping. And with that said, there was so much pressure as a creator to be creating content that's going to stop somebody's scroll. And it felt really exhausting. There was a lot of pressure to continuously post, every day or consistently. So a couple days a week or whatever it may be. And all of a sudden, the content that I had shared in the past that had felt really fun. I really loved creating content for a long time, and I'm still enjoying creating content. I love making the podcast. I'm really loving learning YouTube now and learning about like video and long form. I love writing on Substack, but all of a sudden, the stuff that I used to post on Instagram just wasn't working and it stopped feeling fun, which is the biggest thing. Having a business is really hard and I better be enjoying most of it if I'm going to be doing it. And instead of it being fun, it felt like I was, what Cal Newport has called it, is clocking into my unpaid factory job at Mark Zuckerberg's factory, which really was feeling like a puppy mill for my creativity. It was not enjoyable. And I just started to have this seed of a thought sprout in my head, like, what if you just stopped? What if you let this burden go? And for a while I was like, no, that is impossible. You can't have a business, especially as I'm transitioning into having more of a digital business in addition to my physical location where I'm selling my products from my apothecary, creating courses and selling them, doing online face massage workshops. All of these things felt like you have to have Instagram if you're going to advertise these things and if you're going to be building a community and having eyes on you. And so I kind of pushed that thought aside. And then in September, the political landscape, like there was just news cycle after news cycle happening. It just started to feel pretty polarized, and I was starting to see content that was disturbing me, more disturbing than I had seen before. And I was like, this is not how I want to live life. We get this one precious life, and I'm not going to live my life sucked into this sickness. And so I was complaining about it to my sister one day on the phone and telling her about the latest disturbing post that I had seen. And I was like, what do you think about this? And I had just said, like, I think I'm just going to get off of Instagram for the rest of the year. And she goes, okay, I'll do that too. And I was like, oh, wait, what? Shit. And then I was like, well, I guess I have to do it because she's going to commit to it. I have to commit equally. And so that's kind of where it came from. And I will tell you, it is the greatest gift I have ever given to myself. I have zero regrets. And I really don't think that I'm going to ever get back on. Permission to change my mind. But at this point in time, I don't feel a call to return. I feel so good. And so I do want to talk about what's changed in my life and what I've learned over these last 100 days. The first thing is I feel like I have a renewed sense of self-authorship. And what I mean by that is I feel so much more like I am the director and the architect of my life. And I thought that beforehand, but I was just always, without knowing it, looking around at what everyone else is doing and getting my ideas and my inspiration for life from what everyone else is doing, what everyone else is showing that their life is like, whatever it may be. But now I'm truly just getting it from within. I'm getting it from God. I'm getting it from living in the real world. And that feels so good. I have done an episode about what I call Moon Day, which is my once a month off-grid day where I just like do fun things to have some curated intentional white space in my life. And Moon Day, I always talk about how Moon Day feels like the 90s because I'm totally off grid and there's no tech happening on Moon Day. And I feel like that all the time now, and it has restored this sense of like nostalgia where I don't feel like I'm constantly tethered and connected to everything else. My attention span and my focus has improved. I could not sit down and just read an article without picking my phone up. I would pick it up constantly just to check. And I obviously now don't have anything to check on my phone. And so I can sit down, I can read an article, I can do more focused work for longer. which feeds into the next thing that's changed is I'm more productive, but in a feel-good way, not in like a hustle culture kind of way, but in like I'm getting my house cleaned all the time. I actually asked my boyfriend, what have you noticed in me that's changed in the last 100 days since I was off of social media? And he said, the biggest thing is that I don't procrastinate anymore and I'm getting way more done. He's noticed that I'm getting more done in my work towards building my dreams. I'm getting more done around the house. I'm just like not letting things pile up like I used to. And I didn't think that I was like that. But now I just feel like I have this new lease on life where I'm, organizing things the second that I notice they need to be organized. And I don't feel burnt out by the increased productivity, which is pretty cool. I'm not feeling bombarded by opinions every time there's a news story that comes out. I actually get to just decide what I think about it without seeing a million posts or a million political outrage reposts from people that I know. Even when I would try to avoid these types of topics on Instagram, I didn't feel like hearing about every single person's opinion about it. I would still feel like, am I going to go step in a landmine right now because everyone feels the need to post their opinion? I maybe signed up to follow somebody's account because I loved the bread that they made or I loved their gardening content or whatever, but then all of a sudden, and anyone can post whatever they want, but all of a sudden it was like I would go to their stories and it was like this pithy repost of their opinion about the current headline. And it just felt like I couldn't avoid it. Additionally, I've been harvesting more joy from life. And I think because Instagram is built like a slot machine. So it is built so that you may pull the lever and you may get a positive rush of dopamine or whatever. You might get a bunch of likes for one post, or you might get all lit up because there is a headline happening, or you may go on and nothing happens. And so this type of intermittent reward actually has been shown to increase low-grade depression. And so I just feel like I feel more joyful. I feel happier on a more consistent basis. But along with that, I'm actually experiencing my emotions, like a wider range of my emotions. I am more resilient to boredom. I've noticed because I had this phantom picking up my phone for weeks, maybe longer after I quit Instagram of, I got to check. And I noticed I was doing that when I was annoyed with someone, when I was writing and it felt hard. I was doing it to numb out, basically. And now I actually have to sit with my emotions, which, is good, but it feels hard in the moment. And then finally, it's changed my relationship with my phone. So what really changed, the latest update was this week, I actually decided to take all non-essential apps off of my phone and basically turn it into a dumb phone that also still has things like banking and the things that make me able to run my life. So I took email off. This was a big thing because I was noticing that I replaced my Instagram addiction with an email addiction. I was constantly scrolling my email to see is something new there? And I realized, I think that there was just this ambient background need for, I don't know if it's connection or if it's this need of need for being needed. You know what I mean? So it was very similar to Instagram and I took it off and I feel a lot better. It's an experiment I'm running. If I want to put it back on, I'll put it back on. But for now, it feels a lot better to just check my email twice a day. I took Pinterest off. I noticed I was scrolling Pinterest if I wanted to numb. I took Substack off of my phone. Substack has been tough because I feel like they have turned into another form of social media, even though people love to post on there about how superior they are to social media. But Substack has notes now, which is similar to like Twitter or Threads. And so I was feeling the same anxiety that Instagram had given me, and I was able to really notice that. And so I took that off. I only go on Substack now on my iPad on a Sunday to read the articles that the people I'm subscribed to have posted. But I don't scroll through the notes. I do not let myself scroll through shorts on YouTube. Every time I see shorts, I just go in and say like, show less shorts. So yeah, it's totally changed my relationship to my phone. And I think this is what's caused it to really feel like being in the 90s again. Like I don't feel tethered to the rest of the world. And I feel like I'm actually working on building my dreams, building the life that I want to live, and my brain just feels like ooey gooey and good. So my advice, if this is of interest to you, if you are feeling curious, just run the experiment. You can leave Instagram for 90 days and you can go back if you want afterwards. But I think it is worth just knowing what it's like without it, so that you can make the best decision for yourself. You're never going to know if you don't do it. In my opinion, a 30-day detox is not enough. I did not really start to feel a huge difference until 60 or 90 days in. And, in 3 months from now, I might be like, I didn't really start to feel a difference until now. But I don't think a 30-day detox is enough. I think that you should take longer if you're going to do the thing. I think you should really do the thing and really experience what life is like, because I do think it takes time for your brain to readjust. I would say find other things to replace social media. That's always a big thing with like habit breaking, is that you want to find something to replace the old habit. So I've found so many cool things. I still wanted to connect with people, so I joined an international pen pal club where we send snail mail to each other. So I've been doing so many handwritten letters. It's been so fun and so enlightening. I took a botanical illustration course, and so I've been doing a lot of artwork. I've been baking bread like crazy. I've been reading, but also I've been slowing down with my reading and actually enjoying the book. I've been writing up little book reports and just keeping them in my files and not posting them online. There's so many things. This could be your opportunity to get into something that you've always wanted to, but you didn't think that you had the time for. My next piece of advice is to read the book Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport and really just check out all of his work. He has a podcast. He's amazing. He writes about having a deep life outside of digital distraction. And the book Digital Minimalism, I just thought was absolutely fantastic. It was very inspiring to me. He talks about doing a 30-day digital detox, but like I said, I think you should do longer. And then notice signals from yourself about other apps. I talked about how I was noticing this feeling on Substack. It is social media. It has become social media, which I'm very disappointed about. I was really inspired when Substack first started. It was like the anti-social media, but now it is social media. But I like posting long form and I like reading long form. I just don't interact with it like I would with social media. And then finally, journal about it. I am a big fan of journaling, and I think that it's a really great way to understand where you are and also see patterns within your life. And I don't want this to seem like I'm making it out to be all rainbows and butterflies, because it has not been. It has been really hard. In the respect of my business, I have noticed that I'm blaming every single thing that goes wrong on being off of social media. My podcast downloads have decreased, my in-person bookings have decreased, and I'm actually having to sit with, is this because of social media or is it because of, XYZ? And there's been just a lot of self-doubt that I've had to walk through over these last 3 months. And having the ability to journal about it, to go back and look, and to process my emotions through that way has been really supportive. So the moral of this story for this episode today is, who are you giving your brain, your time, your energy to? And is it a worthy exchange? I would love for you to think on that this week. I will be back next week. And until then, be well. You've been listening to Skin, Earth, Vitality. If you like what you heard today, consider giving me a 5-star rating. It helps other people just like you to find the show. You can shop products and find all of my offerings on my website, stratumaesthetics.com, and follow me on my social channels at Stratum Aesthetics.